Welcome back. In this video, we're going to set up this exercise activity, and we're going to specifically look at this toolbar here at the top, because instead of using an action bar, we're going to customize our own toolbar, and this will give us more control over our application. So we can specifically define what we want to do with this toolbar. If we want to add a little extra button here, for example, and so forth, so we will have full control over it. So let's go ahead and start implementing all of the good stuff. Therefore, what we will need to do is, of course, going to be a new activity. So let's go ahead and create a new activity. Here I'm going to use an empty activity and call it exercise activity, like so. Exercise activity. Let's generate the layout file for us, and let's go ahead and create this file. Okay, so first of all, let's find a way to move over to this exercise activity, and therefore, of course, once we click on the start button, so to speak, we want to be able to move over, and therefore we need to create an intent in here. All right, so how do we create this intent? Well, it's very simple. We've done it before. We create a new variable called intent, and then we use this intent class, pass in the context, make sure that we import it as well, and then we say to which class we want to move over, and we're going to move over to the exercise activity, and then we need to use this class.java at the end. And now we can just start this activity with the intent that we just prepared. Okay, so I hope you managed to do this by yourself as well. You should be well aware of how to move between activities at this point. And now let's go ahead and, well, we can test it to see if this part works before we test anything else. So once it's installed, click on the button and you see we're moving to a different activity, which is currently empty. So now let's design this activity. So what I want to have in this activity is going to be view binding. Therefore, we need to set up view binding here as well. And just a little challenge for you, set up the view binding for this user interface. So just the binding object. Okay, I hope you tried it. It's similar to what we've done in the last video. So here, I'm going to use binding, and here it's called activity, and not main binding, but exercise binding, because we're in the activity, well, the exercise activity class, right? And we set that to null. And then in the onCreate method, we need to initialize binding. So we give it a value of activity exercise inflate and use the layout inflator here. So that's generally the approach, how we inflate. So we fill it, so to speak, with the binding using the layout inflator that we can pass. And then we can use this binding in here, which is a nullable, to set its root as the content view, so as the main content of our onCreate method. And now what I want to add in here is going to be the option of using our action bar. So as I said, I want to have an action bar here at the top. You see on a top level inside of our manifest, we have defined that we don't want to have action bars throughout our entire application. So we said no action bar. So that's why we don't have an action bar in this screen as well. We just have a white screen. So instead, I want to have a toolbar here, which, as I said, gives me more control. In order to create a toolbar, you need to, first of all, well, to create the toolbar inside of your XML file. So let's go over to our activity exercise XML and set up a toolbar. So this time I'm going to use something called relative layout. Okay, in a relative layout, items are positioned relatively to another. Okay, so this is one of the more old school layouts, you could say, but it's still very valuable and useful. All right, so inside of it, I'm just going to have a toolbar. And this toolbar is under Android X App Compat widget. Okay, so here it will have a width of match parent and a height of, and this is going to be a height that I want to use from action bar size, and it's under Android :attr, so attributes, and then there's this action bar size property. So I want to use this particular size which is a dimension that has a defined value. So it's just predefined, and this will allow us to make sure that each of our toolbars will just be as large as an action bar. Okay, so a toolbar is just an action bar that is more powerful and more customizable. That's what we want to have. So I'm going to give this an ID so that I can access it in my activity file. So I'm going to call this one toolbar exercise, like so. And if you want to change its theme a little bit, you can set the theme property, and then we can now define our own theme. So there would be easier ways, but I'm going to show you how this is done. So inside of your themes XML file, you can define styles. And you see we have this one style already, the no action bar style, where we use a bunch of items for colors and stuff, but we can create our own style here as well. And I'm going to call this one toolbar theme, and it will inherit from the action bar theme. So it's under add style, and here theme overlay. Let me just type it in. I think I'll need to do that. Theme overlay and material components action bar. This one here. Okay, so I'm going to inherit from that. I'm saying, okay, my style should be as this style, but I want to have some more settings. And the settings that I want to put in here, I'm going to add an item, which I'm gonna call color control normal, which will be a color that I'm defining, and it will use the color. And let's create a new color for that. So here, add color. I'm going to call this color toolbar color control normal. And this color accordingly doesn't exist. So let's go over to our colors and let's create this color, which would just be a black color. So you can move over to your colors, here, XML file, and you can just create this color here. Even though, of course, at this point you could have used the black color as well. But just to show you how this works, right? So you create a new color here that you want to use, and you could replace that anytime, because we're not going to just use black here, but we're going to use this toolbar color normal, and you can just use this to change it whatever, well, to whatever you like here, and this will then be the color that will be used for your theme file. Let me jump over to the theme again. So here I'm using the light theme here, not the, or the day theme, not the night theme. So you would have to design each individually, but I'm just going to focus on the day theme here. Okay, so I'm just saying I want to use this color inside of this toolbar theme. Okay, now inside of our exercise activity, we can now actually use our toolbar. And how do we do that? Well, by first of all making sure that we support action bars. Okay, set support action bar. There's this method, and you need to write it correctly. So here set, and this is here support, like so. Set support action bar, and then you can say which action bar you want to use. So here binding.toolbar exercise, which is this toolbar that we created. Okay, so this is the toolbar that will be at the top of our screen, as you see here. It now, of course, needs to use the theme that we have just set up, this one here, this toolbar theme. So how do we connect all of that? Well, here we just need to say, so here in the theme, we just say add style toolbar theme, because that's how we called it, right? So it's this style that we created inside of our themes. All right. And now we can change another one. So I'm going to set the background of this to be white. See here, color white. And then we have the layout height. Well, we can also add a text color. So title text color for our toolbar. And I'm just going to use color primary here. Okay, in our case, it was this grayish black color. All right, now let's check it out. Let's see how this is going to look like in our exercise activity. And we see we have this toolbar here at the top, which by default uses the name of the application as the title. And now let's go ahead and add a back button here as well. In order to add a back button, we can use binding dot toolbar exercise dot, and of course the question mark as well, set navigation on click listener. Okay, so this is an on-click listener for the navigation, and the toolbar is a navigation bar, so to speak. And here we can call the on-back pressed method. So the on-back pressed method is going to do the same thing as if you click on this back button on your phone. Now, if we run this, we will still miss the back button. So how do we get the back button in there? First, we need to check if support action bar is not equal null. And if that's the case, then we can use that action bar to set the display home as enabled. So display home as enabled. And this is the one. So set display home as up enabled. And we can set that to true. So this will then activate the back button for us. Let's check it out once again. And you see we have the back button now. And we can click on it. And you see it works flawlessly. And if we are in this screen, you can also click on the back button and you see it will also send us back to the main activity. So that's generally how it works, right? So you have this back button in your toolbar, and once you click on it, you get the same behavior as the back pressed if you implement it this way. So here you could, of course, implement whatever you want. You could close the application or go to another screen or whatever. But what we're doing is we're just saying do the same thing as if you are clicked on the back button on your device. All right, so that's pretty much it. In the next video, we're going to implement custom UI elements for our progress bar to tick counterclockwise. So let's look at that in the next video.